Hello, and a warm welcome to this week's edition of the Irish Angle, our weekly discussion show about all things horse racing. We've Emma Nagle and Jonny Ward here, but before we start, just one little bit of housekeeping. Thanks to those who did listen to my advice last week and fill out our survey on the website. If you get a chance, if you haven't done it already, please do. It's halfway down the homepage on the site. It'll only take you about 2 minutes, and we'd be very happy if you'd fill it out. Okay, thanks for that. Right, we'll move on now. The first thing that we need to talk about on the agenda today is poor old Mikey O'Connor, who sadly passed away last week. The point-to-point rider. He rode about 500 winners, I think, between the track and point-to-point, to be a really well-known figure in the sport. He took ill early last week and then died, only 44 years of age. Tragic loss to his family, and deepest sympathies go out to them. Emma, he'd be from down in your neck of the woods, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he'd be from a close enough area to me. It was really tragic to hear of his passing. Really sudden. Thoughts and sympathies go out to all of his friends and family. Mikey would have been, I suppose, an institution of the Irish point-to-point community, a multiple champion in the Southern Circuit, and a brilliant rider and a brilliant horse. There were some lovely tributes from Mick Winters during the week, who he would have had a long association with. He would have ridden a whole host of top-class horses throughout his time in the point-to-point circuit, and his family massively steeped in racing. His son Dylan came through this year. He was a champion in the pony racing circuit last year. So it's really tragic to hear Mikey's passing. He'll be sorely missed in the racing community here in Cork and all over the country, because he was a man who was incredibly talented and incredibly well liked as well around the place.
Yeah. Jonny, you would have known him well.
Yeah, I suppose I don't know if I could say I knew him well, but the first horse that I ever had a leg in, he took him a long time to win, and Mikey O'Connor was the first jockey to win on him in an amateur riders race at Punchestown. And I remember talking to Davy Fitzgerald before the race, and he was I think Davy's line was this: I'm very confident today, and he was extolling the fact that the talents of Mikey O'Connor, and Mikey was as strong as an ox in the finish that day. And it seems a long time ago now, but he's actually just older than me, Mikey. And his mother Noreen used to go racing with him. I nearly remember her more than Mikey, because the kick she got out of following him around and going to the races at the time, and I'd always give her a hug and have a bit of crack with her. And it's desperately sad. 3 kids, Dylan obviously so highly rated as well, and you know, in the League of Ireland community in Galway, anyone associated with Galway United, we're still reeling from the death of Ollie Horgan in his late 50s and Mikey to be taken in his mid 40s. It's desperately sad. He was a really strong rider, and my sympathies go to Noreen and all the family.
Absolutely, yeah, I'd second that. And then just the other thing from last week, only from yesterday on Sunday, we had a bad accident in York where Jim Crowley and Trevor Whelan took very heavy falls. Jim Crowley, a broken leg and pelvis as far as we know, and Trevor Whelan, a broken leg in 3 places. Both horses are okay, I'm hearing. But it's a dangerous sport, isn't it? The riding, you used to do it too. No wonder you gave it up.
I was lucky enough to ride against Mikey O'Connor on a few point-to-points, and he was definitely a man you could take plenty of pointers from. I think I tried to go up his inner one time, and it was the last time I tried to do it to anyone. He was a brilliant man to, I suppose, teach young riders coming through, and he actually gave me a donkey to ride in the donkey derby one time a long time ago as well. So, but yeah, it was nasty incidents in New York during the week. Look, I suppose both riders, I think they were saying broken is nasty looking, and we saw it earlier on the week as well. Oisin Murphy had a very bad fall in Ascot, and Sam James was involved in that. I think Oisin Murphy got up okay. Unfortunately, the horse lost its life, but Sam James was taken to hospital. I haven't heard any more news about him, but he was taken for assessment, so hopefully all's okay there as well. But yeah, the thoughts going out to both riders involved yesterday. It looked really nasty.
Yeah, we wish them well. The other thing in the UK this week, of course, is that strike is on Wednesday. British horse racing, a 1-day strike in protest over new taxing legislation on bookmakers. What do you make of that, Jonny? We've talked about it before. Will it make much impact, do you think, the 1-day strike?
It's hard to know. Like I texted somebody from heavily involved in the industry in Britain today, and I said, "What's the take on Wednesday's strike over there?" And he replied, "It's happening all week. I just walked from King's Cross to the office," and he confused my request with the rail strike, which is kind of part of the whole thing because it's a big strike over there in terms of the rail and tube and all of that. And Liam Otterstead's article in the Race Post is quite interesting because this. The betting tax kind of campaign, and it's been a fairly big campaign, just hasn't gotten anywhere near, I suppose, the amount of petitions that some might have thought it would get. But this is really, really significant for the future of racing, and in terms of how the racing is changing. I worry about the action of Flutter, which has been referenced as well in relation to Flutter's concerns about the betting tax. Flutter pulled out of sponsoring a TV show based on, ostensibly anyway, based on concerns about betting tax and stuff like that. And for me, Flutter issued a statement afterwards, or one of its people spoke about racing's place and how they remain committed to racing, but racing's in danger of being left behind. Like when I started, my first memory of a betting shop is when tax was 10% in Ireland, and you went into a kind of a smoke-filled place in the corner of some grubby town, and basically everything was a bet on the horses or the dogs. Now the betting shops are closing, and the guys who can make these models to sell to the bookmakers, where you can build a bet and betting in play and all that sort of stuff, they're making the money. And that's where, like many things in life, it's going towards as little people as possible working in a particular sport, and betting is going such now that the bookmakers want stuff that they don't have to monitor. They just have to monitor, but they don't need people to actually set the odds. Racing is kind of unique in that, and my perspective on racing is that the bookmakers really could care less and less about it, and this is worrying because if bookmakers start pulling out of sponsorships and they start getting wary of the money that they're having to pay, we're in big trouble going forward. Because when you have a situation of Lee Westwood on about affordability tax, this affordability checks in the last few days, you really do need to take up and step up and take notice. But we'll see how the strike goes. It's a radical move. There's a meeting in Ireland. I'm not really sure what it's going to achieve, but I respect the fact that those people in Britain who are worried about the betting tax are coming from a good place, because we're in big trouble with racing going forward.
You could be right. Anyway, talking about racing going forward, we've got a big weekend coming up in Ireland, probably the biggest weekend of the year, really. 5 million or more in prize money. Irish Champions Festival. We've just bits of news about it. We've Wayne Lorden. He lost his appeal about the suspension he had, so he remains suspended for both days. Billy Lee, your man down in Paddy Toomey's, he's going to be back in time. He's due back tomorrow, I think, is he? And then we've got Ombudsman, doesn't run in the Irish Champion Stakes. John Gosden has decided to swerve the anticipated rematch with Delacroix. Aidan O'Brien was hoping to be on. Gosden says no. He talks about team tactics and all sorts of stuff, and Aidan is bouncing back in some interviews he did during the week. What do you make of all this, Emma?
Yeah, it was entertaining stuff. You like to see it because a lot of the time in racing media, in fairness, trainers and jockeys can kind of maybe bite their tongue a little bit and make it a little bit more PC. But it was nice to see kind of fighting talk coming from the Gosden and the Ballydoyle camp during the week. I think Aidan's interview actually might have been recorded, as far as I know, before the Gosden comments came out. So it was interesting to see a bit of tit for tat going back. Look, it's a pity that Ombudsman's not coming over. He would have been one of the ones you were looking forward to in that Irish Champion Stakes. I think Delacroix's odds-on favourite for that now, with Ombudsman not travelling over. But look, it's a massive weekend for Irish racing, and there's been plenty of media, I suppose, around the Ballydoyle camp over the last week or so, and like the way Aidan talks about it as a week that's kind of changed the flat scene in Irish racing, I suppose. A big international challenge. Good to see Shin Emperor back over from Japan again to have another go at the Champion Stakes. Look, you'll be looking forward to it. And the little bit of tit for tat in the media kind of helps build up, I suppose. It's something maybe like you'd see in other sports. You wouldn't see it in racing too often now. All harmless bit of fun, I suppose, between the two of them. But it was interesting, and plenty of people got a kick out of it, I'd say.
I thought it was brilliant, Vinny. I mean, and I had no idea that what Emma's in there. I had no idea. This does change the complexion. If Aidan's interview were before the Gosden comments, that's quite different. Because when the John Gosden comments came out, I mean, I was texting over to the to my British kind of racing friends, and I was like, come on. I mean, you can't just like, this is kind of crybaby stuff. Like, you won't come over to Leopardstown. This is about racing. It's about the challenge of beating a horse you've already beaten. And I'm sorry, like, but if you had 56 pacemakers in the race, you should find a way around it. Like, if you're good enough. And I mean, when the remark was made, I was kind of thinking, I wonder what Aidan O'Brien is thinking privately here. But it turns out Aidan, who never really does this, came out with these remarkable comments. I thought it was really captivating, brilliant to see. Would love to see more of it.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure the timeline of the comments now, but I'd say it would have been fairly tight between them. I saw the Gosden comments coming out on the Monday morning, and I think that Ballydoyle press morning was on the Monday as well. So look, maybe Aidan got word of what was after being said before he did his interview at Racing TV, but it was good to see it. It kind of adds a bit of excitement, and look, you never know, maybe they might meet again down the line in America or something like that, but it's a bit of a loss for Leopardstown, in fairness.
Yeah, without a doubt. Look, it's going to be a fantastic weekend, ombudsman or no ombudsman, isn't it? It's the pinnacle of the sport in Ireland, and probably almost internationally at this stage. It's a fantastic weekend, and it captivates everyone who's interested in horse racing to see that top level of the sport. But I wrote a blog.
Having said that, Vinny, I don't think it's a great renewal now, the way it's shaping up. Like, a Shin Emperor was beaten in the race last year. He's around 5-6 to 1. He was flopped in the Arc, and I think it's shaping up to be fairly, like, Delacroix no superstar. I think it's shaping up to be a disappointing renewal of the race.
Perhaps so, but the weekend in general is a fantastic weekend of racing overall, and we've got the best we can put on as such. But as I was saying in my blog this week, it costs over 5 million in prize money is put in there. It's over 7% of the annual prize money in Ireland goes into 2 days this weekend. And as I discussed around it, that the owners at the other end of the scale are struggling to make ends meet. It's a very expensive pastime if you have a horse. And I mentioned one that I talked about, a horse called the Bog Bank, who's a mare that's run 85 times. She's won 8 races. Very few get to win 8 races. But yet she's still costing her owners a lot of money over the years between everything, all the different expenses. Jonny, you've had horses. It's not easy to make money out of them, is it?
Oh, I don't know. Like, the first horse that I was involved in happened to be good, and even though I only had like maybe a 10% stake in him, that it's like having your first bet. You're better off if it loses, really, that sort of way. And a lot of people will say, "Oh, my first bet won," and I thought it was easy. I mean, I've been involved in more horses than the average person for the salary I'm on anyway, because I had this idea, I try to land a punt, or I try to do this or that. Never really was even never really got close to it, actually, in terms of a horse I owned. But it's like this: I'm a freelance journalist, right? And like, if you look at how much everything has gone up in price, like the last few years, my wages do not go up. Like, they just don't go up at all by general rule. So whatever I'm on is getting less every year, and I'm still lucky to be in the work I'm in, but my wages will stay the way they are while everything else goes up. In horse racing, it's kind of like that, in that if you're paying, your training fees are going up, the cost of the horse going to the races, petrol, diesel, all of that's gone up. The trainer has to increase his fees or her fees, because everything he or she is paying, everything's gone up. And then once you actually start winning, your prize money is stagnant at best. And Lee Westwood spoke about this. If you're an owner who basically is finding it very, very hard to land a gamble in the first place, you're getting all these affordability checks, and prize money is so bad. I honestly, I find I still get kind of sucked back into it for whatever reason. But the amount of money that I have spent on training fees I actually don't want to know how much it is, and the amount of things that go wrong, Vinny, and you throw, like, the amount of things that go wrong if the horse is any use, the likelihood of getting injured. But at the moment, owning a horse, for me is just, it's becoming really difficult, because prize money is really poor in Ireland, like really, really poor. And as you say, if you're lucky enough to win you could go to a 25 runner flat handicap in Navan. It's very competitive. $6,000 to the winner, so you'll take home about $4,000 maybe. Won't pay 2 months training fees if you're one of the winners. 24 of the horses don't win, and then your trainer has to tell you the horse had a setback. Don't know. Well, should we keep going? It might be 6 months out. That the fees, the economics of it are absolute basket case at the moment. If you want to waste money, get involved in horse ownership, unfortunately.
Yeah. And then we look at the other end of this scale, which is the higher end, maybe not the very, very peak elite end of it that we're going to see this weekend, but certainly on the handicap front, those premier handicaps, we're struggling to fill them. We don't appear to have enough horses in that category in Ireland anymore. The talk is a lot of them are being sold abroad at an early stage, going to Hong Kong, going to Dubai, and wherever else where there's a lot more prize money. And that seems to be what's happening. So we had that Colin Quinn BMW mile at Galway, didn't fill. And then we had the recent Paddy Power Irish Cambridgeshire, didn't have a full field either. I think it's the smallest field, about 20 years for that race. Emma, what do you make of it?
Yeah, like, and that's all a knock-on effect from what Jonny's saying. Like the prize money, I suppose at the lower levels just isn't good enough to sustain someone keeping a horse in training to maybe get to the level of running in a Colin Quinn mile or a Premier Handicap or, you know, a Group 1, 2, 3 in Ireland, because, you know, if there's a select number of owners who can afford, you know, to keep horses in training no matter what they're earning. But, you know, for the majority of owners, you know, you want your horse to at least pay away. But then, you know, if you happen to come across a nice horse who, you know, maybe wins a maiden as a 2-year-old, shows form as a 2-year-old, you know, looks progressive, they're going to be getting massive offers from abroad, from jurisdictions like Hong Kong, Australia, where the prize money is huge, and you're getting offered a sum of money that you just really can't turn down, because, you know, economically, like, you might, like, the majority of racehorse owners are relatively wealthy people, but, you know, it would just make no sense to turn down the money, given what, you know, a horse might end up earning in their career in Ireland. It's going to be minuscule in comparison. You'd have to be very lucky to earn what they're being offered to sell them abroad. So, like, it's kind of an issue stemming from the bottom, I suppose. Like Jonny was saying, like, the prize money for the lower level races in Ireland just isn't good enough to entice an owner into keeping a horse in training. At the hope, look, most owners just want to have a bit of fun with their horses, but like at the same time, you don't want to be losing massive money. And if you're getting offered money from abroad after your horse shows some bit of form, like, you're likely to sell it, and that's what's kind of leading on. There isn't that kind of higher level of horse to compete in those good handicaps, and, you know, to take on the bigger stables in the group races, because, you know, owners just kind of maybe force their hand to sell. So, and like, you can see it even like in the Ledger on Saturday in the UK. There's only eight confirmations, I think, or 4 or 5 of them are from Ballydoyle. Like, it's definitely a worry. Like, at that level of racing, there should be bigger fields and more variety, I suppose, among owners and trainers. But it's also, I think, in my opinion, it all kind of stems down to prize money. It's not economically viable anymore well, maybe it never was, but it's now economically viable for most owners to have horses in training in Ireland or in the UK, because, you know, it just costs so much. And if you're getting offers abroad, you're going to sell them, and then the good horses leave the country, and it's going to be a problem down the line, I'd say, for both Ireland and the UK.
Yeah, just on that, Vinny, like Emma touched on that. It was never economically viable. First of all, if you want to, you know, waste money, buy a horse, like, and that's fair enough. And if the trainer is telling you different, like, you know, you have to have your head screwed on. That's generally wealthy people own horses. Syndicates and all of that has opened it up. But one of my big problems is now, if you want to, the last horse I was involved in, I said to the owner, I want to win 100 grand on the show here to make this somewhat worthwhile. And that might sound absolutely ridiculous, but I don't mind not betting for a good while and having a serious bet on a horse with insider information on the day. And that's why I'm paying all these training fees, that on the day I'm told, what is the chance of the horse's price holding up? Because you've no chance of getting on at early morning prices. Absolutely no chance. So you need, like, you saw the Brenda Duke trained horse, massive gamble on the show the other night. Like, if you can pull something, and it finished place, if you can pull something off like that, great. But the amount of stars that have to align for you to even get the bet on, and people might laugh at this 100 grand on the show, but that's 5 grand at 20 to 1 or something like that. Something as simple as that. That is very, very, very difficult now. And that's getting it on the show if you can keep the price down, because the prices just collapse throughout the day with no money at all. So it's really, really difficult for an owner. That's not to mind affordability checks. I mean, obviously you can't get on in the first place. So there's a lot of reasons to be kind of downbeat about it, for all that we all love the kick of a winner.
Yeah, that's the thing. Look, it just looks as if with the cost of living going up so much, and the prize money, as we say, staying static, the gap is becoming wider and wider, isn't it, to try and make ends meet if you're an owner. Like, whatever it may have, say an owner 10 years ago, it might have cost them 10 grand a year or 15 grand a year to keep a horse in training, with all the different associated costs. Now it's probably 20, 25 grand it's costing them, and it's just getting wider and wider, that gap. That's the problem, isn't it? But there's no absolute solution to this. I can't see a solution. Where do we get more money from for prize money? There isn't. The money isn't there, is the bottom line. It doesn't appear to be there unless we start cap in hand to the government again, looking for more and putting more taxpayers' money into it. I can't see that happening. I I think that's about as much as we can get. It's over 60% currently of government money that goes into prize money in the first place. And then the owners themselves are sticking in for 25%. So you're up to 85% there between those two lots alone. Anyway, we'll move on. Hillsin Case from over 2 years ago is finally going to be heard by the BHA in the UK, where they've charged both the jockey Dylan Kitts and the trainer Chris Honor with purposely preventing the horse running on its merits. Now, no major surprise in the fact that they're getting charged with something in the end. Whether they're found guilty or not, I don't know, but that's what's happening. But what seems crazy here is it's taken over 2 years for this to reach that stage. And that seems to be the case in an awful lot of these incidents in horses. And Jonny, with the likes of that Redwood Queen sitting on the IHRB's desk at the moment, that could be a few years before we get to the bottom of that one too.
Yeah, I was told recently that the result of that investigation was pending, which I actually thought would have been nearly by now, but they are very, very complex. This case, I mean, I don't know, what do you say? Like, what for me was interesting, Vinny, I don't know what you made of it, was like Chris Honor seemed to be like disassociating himself from this very quickly, where the owner's horse were out of the yard. And like, you shouldn't jump to conclusions in cases like this. The trainer might have absolutely nothing to do with it. The owner might have absolutely nothing to do with it. Sometimes, as bad as it looks, the jockey might actually be telling the truth. But it just shows how difficult these cases are 2 years later. And now you have an associate charged. He's slamming the BHA following a life-changing deterioration in health. Like, this looked absolutely awful on the day, like really, really bad. And I don't know where we are 2 years later now.
No. What do you make of that, Emma? The jockey hasn't ridden since. Not quite sure if that's totally of his own volition. I know that he was stopped from riding initially after Dylan Kitts, but he hasn't ridden in over 2 years either. So it's had an effect on his life, career, mental health, and everything else, I'd say.
Yeah, I was trying to find that out before we came on. I know he's like you said, his license was suspended immediately, but I'm not sure if that suspension is ongoing or whether he's just not riding. Otherwise, and it's obviously had an effect on trainer Chris Honor as well. I think he's only saddled 8 waters this year. From what I've seen, in comparison to 45 to 50 in years gone by. Look. Yeah, like Jonny said, it's kind of hard to jump to conclusions. It's obviously a fairly complex case with different parties being involved, and it'll be interesting. It's taken a long, long time. I suppose when you put it on the running order, like it's the name springs to mind. It's hard to forget. Watching the race back, but it's taken a long time to come, and it'll be very interesting to see the case that's put ahead. And it's interesting the BHA they've put a few extra dates provisionally in for the hearing as well. So I'd say they're expecting a fairly long haul here. I think they've put 4 or 5 dates aside to hear the case for this one. So I'd say it's a lot more complex than meets the eye from what I've gathered anyway.
Yeah, 2 years worth of evidence. Take a while to read that out anyway, I'd imagine. Yeah, so it's bound to take a while anyway. We'll look at that in a few weeks' time when we get to the bottom line of it. The other thing, back to racing, back to what's happened in the last few days. We had Goliath back on track, winning a Group 1 in France yesterday. We also had Longchamp, where Rosalien beating a short head again. Jeez, that drive you mad on that horse, wouldn't it, in the Moulin? And the Lion in Winter finished third. Then we also had the Vermeil, where Adventure is now gone favourite for the Prix de l'Arc, and Bread Time Story was third in that race. What you make of that stuff, Jonny? That's your end of it, the top end, jewel of all these premium horses.
Yeah, the arc picture is kind of interesting now. Calpana was probably too short in the betting in a way on Saturday, taking on a good horse, but she was quite disappointing at the same time. And I don't know what to make of her now. We have the issue of Whirl and Mini Hawk, where they're going to go. Bedtime Story has kind of been one of the forgotten about fillies, and she ran a very good race. Like, she's kind of it was hard to know at the start of the year what her sort of trip was going to be, but she ran an intriguing race, and I suppose Los Angeles was disappointing. I don't know what happened with Whirl. That was one of her first real proper disappointing runs, and the arc picture looks a little bit smudged. I'd still be very sweet on Mini Hawk, but it was certainly an interesting weekend, and obviously Christophe Soumignon now going to pick up all these big rides. It was a kind of a good precursor for him, but a disappointing day for Ballydoyle, all told.
Yeah, they didn't have a great weekend, Emma, did they? Ballydoyle.
Oh yeah, it was disappointing. I was disappointed by Whirl in particular. She was kind of one that I was looking forward to watching yesterday, and I'd say you just have to put a line through it. Like, she just didn't seem to run her race at all for whatever reason. It definitely wasn't her running. And look, it's a short enough bounce back for the Arc now, and it's hard to really fancy her off the back of that. I thought Los Angeles's reappearance had a bit more promise maybe than the bare result might show. He kicked a few lengths clear. He showed a good bit of pace, and I probably just blew up after a bit of time off. So I definitely wouldn't be ruling him out of a good autumn campaign. I thought he showed plenty on his reappearance. The Japanese challenge for the Arc looks fairly strong now. Their winner by Xantine's Dream. I'm not saying that right, definitely. Oisin Murphy won on him over the weekend. I think he's gone into second or third favourite for the Arc now as well. So it adds another kind of interesting international element. They have a few good contenders coming over from Japan this year. So it was good racing in France yesterday. And yeah, Christophe Soumia maybe didn't get off to the best start, and he's a new Ballydoyle role, but I'm sure he'll probably make it up at the weekend. I'm not sure where he'll go, to Doncaster or to Leopardstown, but a few nice rides wherever he goes, and I am sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, that Shin Emperor as well. I know Jonny was saying it's not going to be the greatest Irish Champion Stakes ever, but I remember he ran a cracker in the Irish Champion Stakes last year and was one of the fancied horses going to the Arc. So interesting to see how he is 12 months on and what happens with him in Leopardstown. The other thing from last week, a couple of things. One is Andy Oliver, 125 to a winner of a maiden at Navan on Saturday. Railway View Lady. And a 40 to 1 second. I just see the forecast paid 2,680 odd quid. You wouldn't mind having your couple of quid in that, Jonny. You wouldn't be far off getting the 100 grand you're looking for. And then the other one that I see is Paddy Hanlon, Shark Hanlon's son, is heading off to Nicky Henderson as a conditional rider for the jump season. That's big news for him, Jonny. He could do very well there, couldn't he?
Yeah, I did actually get the forecast up one time in a race. Somebody pointed out a bookmaker where if you're restricted, they lay you the forecast based on their prices. And I put 2 16 to 1 shots in it, and neither of them was back, but it ended up being a 1-2. And needless to say, I completely wasted the money. But it was very strange watching the race where there were 3 horses going to the last, and I needed 2 of them to finish first and second in either order. And I was watching at a bus stop, and I remember, and I was just getting on the bus, and I'd watched the race, and I was like, oh my God, I just got the forecast up there. So it's beautiful when it happens. I didn't get it, and I did waste the money, but I didn't get the forecast up at Navan. I was thinking of this stuff, Vinny. David Power used to have a thing where he'd never go over 20 to 1 because he thought it was a disservice to the horse. So now prices are based on the 1,000 on the betting exchanges. So if it's 1,000 on the betting exchange, it's not going to be 20 to 1. It might be 200 to 1, 300 to 1, 150 to 1. And sometimes horses aren't back. Like Andy Oliver's horse had a chance here. It had a bit of a chance in form. It wasn't the strongest maiden. But sometimes I don't really know how the market now, you get these massive price horses. They do have a bit of a chance. There's just nobody backing them, but they have a bit of ability. And, it'll be interesting to see what the horse does going forward. But unfortunately, I didn't have the forecast. Big one for Paddy Hanlon. I feel it's one thing riding for your dad in Ireland, but this will make a man out from now going over there, and he's a good lad. Let's see how it goes for him.
Yeah, very good. All right, we're going to move on. Last thing is horses to follow from last week. I'll start off with one. I gave this only a week or 10 days ago. I mentioned the race anyway. Arena, trained by the Hearties, ridden by Jessica O'Gorman. It made all in Nace to win. Handicap landed a bit of a punt that day as well. Popped up in Down Royal on Friday, £9 higher, does exactly the same again. Makes it all with Jessica O'Gorman, wins easy. Looks like one that'll stay further and win again. That'll be one I'd be keeping on the right side of for now anyway. Arena. All right, Emma, what about yourself?
I kind of mentioned this a bit earlier there, but I was just looking at the Arc betting. Los Angeles is about 20 to 1 and bigger in places for the Arc after he's run at the weekend. I thought it was a run with plenty of promise. He was obviously third in the race last year when they made plenty of use of him. I wouldn't be surprised to see him running a big race there for Ballydoyle. I imagine that might be where he'll be heading for next. And when he's that big of a price, I wouldn't mind taking a small bet on him each way for the Arc a bit down the line.
Yeah, good stuff. Nice pick. I like the sound of that. Jonny, what about yourself?
Yeah, sorry, Vinny. The racing at Down Royal, I was there in Ariana. This is a nice story. Like for all that we've bemoaned horse in training, like the owner said to Eddie and Paddy Harty, this horse will win. And just talking to Patrick afterwards, he was saying that Jessica does not ride this horse at home because he's she's quite strong, but she rides her in the races. And I spoke to her afterwards. She said she was just talking about a horse that's kind of headstrong. You just let her at it. If you fight her, it doesn't work out. And it was a brilliant ride from her. I thought she was an absolute breath of fresh air afterwards. She's from Clare. She loves it, and she was even talking really favourably of how good what's her name is Nicola Burns has been, and I think Nicola could be 4 or 5 years younger than her. So this is even to show she's not she's only the new kid on the block, but like it's great to see the girls doing so well on the flat. And I thought Jessica was a breath of fresh air afterwards, and Ariana has done a nice job. Interested to see where she goes yet. Next at the same card, Green Citation. Gates is a stallion who's doing very, very well, probably more so now with 3-year-olds down the line, but he's creating waves. And Green Citation ran in a maiden won by 11A. I thought it was good racing at Down Royal, and this horse, considering all that went wrong from the draw and the greenness for Joseph Ryan, lovely start, lovely horse going forward.
Just talking about the girls on the flat there, it was interesting. Aidan O'Brien giving young Freya Frayne her first ride in Navan at the weekend. I know, I'd say one for the listeners in the comments, the last jockey to have their first ride for Ballydoyle is £10 claimer. Like it wouldn't be the most usual, so I'd say she's probably a talent to keep an eye on as well down the line. I think she came from the pony racing circuit, but to have your first ride in the racecourse for Ballydoyle probably says a bit about her talents as well, so it's probably one to watch out for.
Yeah, I'd say the last £10 claimer having a first ride was one of his children, I'd imagine.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, thanks for all of that. Thanks for watching, those who've got as far as this at the end of the show. And do gamble responsibly if you are having a bet. And make sure to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Back again next week with more of the same. And we'll be looking back on all that happened, Irish Champions Festival and the St. Leger Doncaster. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.